Go. Go, 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 go. Out. Out. Come on. Out you go. Come on. Out, out, out. Barn cats aren't allowed inside. Come on. So, have you guys seen this new Red Dead Redemption 2 video game that just came out? It looks pretty awesome. Oh boy, would you look at that temperature. That's chilly. So, I gotta admit something to you. I am horribly addicted to video games. Hopelessly addicted. Ridiculously addicted. Whether it's sports games or racing games or first-person shooter games or strategy games or simulation games, those are all video games that I could play for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. But if there's one type of game that I'm addicted to more than any other, it's the open world game.
That wasn't the request.
You know, when I say open world games too, I mean games like Grand Theft Auto, where you're able to run from the cops.
This is discrimination against drug addicts with propensities for violence.
And kill people left and right. And do all this awful stuff and have zero consequences for any of it.
Man overboard!
For some disgusting reason, that appeals to me. And for a number of years, I really struggled with an addiction to video games. I would just sit down and play, and hours would just evaporate. I don't even know what happened to that time. It would just be all sucked up and soaked into this imaginary world. And I would gain all of these interesting skills and capabilities that, when I turned the video game off, meant absolutely nothing in the real world. Release the Kraken! And eventually, after wasting hours upon hours upon hours in an imaginary world, I started to realize that I had a problem. I think it was right around the time that Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. I started to come up with this idea of, you know what, I'm gonna beat this game and I'm swearing off video games because I could spend a decade playing just this one game because it's so complex and it's such an incredible world that's been built. So, New Year's Eve one year, I decided to swear off video games. I even made it like my New Year's resolution. So New Year's Eve, I even had a ceremonious suicide of my Grand Theft Auto Online character so all my friends could watch and hold me accountable. And giving up video games worked. I stopped, just cold turkey. I went for years without playing a video game. And I think the incredible thing is there was this sort of magic that happened too, where I started to do more. I started to read more books, which started to get me thinking more, which started to get me into growing tomatoes on our rooftop or turning our front yard in Washington, D.C. into a garden. And I got to admit, that was a pretty incredible experience. I was starting to notice, gross, that I was achieving and accomplishing stuff in the real world with all that time I would have spent playing video games. Like, if I hadn't given up video games, I would have never gotten into agriculture. I would have never taken the time to research how to start my own farm and how to find my own farm and gone through the effort and expense. Because I had all this free time that I used to spend on video games, I was able to build the plan that ultimately helped us establish our farm here. Here I am, now achieving things and accomplishing things and unlocking things and developing new skills and leveling up on stuff that I would have never thought would have been possible for me when I was just sort of a couch potato playing video games.
Go away.
What?
Go watch your linear entertainment.
Because the reality of it all is, I used to think of myself as someone who couldn't really accomplish big stuff in the real world. And so I relegated myself to playing sort of a simulation of a world in a video game. And that's I think a big part of what drove me to spend so much time playing video games, because I was so afraid of taking risks and doing things in the real world. Because there's no autosave your game, there's no reset button. You know, I know it sounds cliche, but life is life. It just happens and you gotta keep going with it. And you could have animals that get sick, or you could, break something and it costs a bunch of money. But at the same time, without those real world failures, you wouldn't have those same real world successes. Like, I can look at my life now and the accomplishments that I've had, just even in being 6 months up here at the farm, between the things that we have going on with our permaculture orchard and the experience that I had with raising 40 ducks. That sentiment that's out there about how when you have nothing ventured, you have nothing gained is so true. And I often found that by playing video games, I wasn't venturing anything. I wasn't offering anything up. I wasn't taking any real risks. And it wasn't until I started to step out of the video game world and into real life that I started to take those risks and I started to try to go for those opportunities. But now, as I look at things, I am very much confronted with the dilemma. So of all the video games I ever played, my favorite game by far has been Red Dead Redemption. It was this cool cowboy game set in like 1900 in this awesome Western open world. It was highly detailed. There were so many side quests and activities. You could just spend hours of the game shooting dice or playing cards or hunting animals. You didn't even have to go after the big missions or the games or the accomplishments. It was awesome. And Red Dead Redemption came out in an interesting time in my life personally too. So it was a time right after Allison and I had gotten engaged, and Allison moved to New Orleans to attend grad school, and I moved to New York City to start a new job. So there I was in a brand new city, all alone, and to pass the time, I spent a ridiculous amount of time playing Red Dead Redemption. It's the only game that I've ever completed to 100%. I explored every nook and cranny. I did all sorts of weird experiments. I had so much fun. It was so enjoyable. It was incredible. And it wasted a ridiculous amount of my life. It wasted a lot of my life, but it was a lot of fun. Which gets back to the core of my dilemma with video games. I can think back to many times where I spent with friends or alone playing video games, the incredible experiences and memories that they've created, and they're just awesome. And I know for a lot of people out there in the world, for example, like Twitch live streamers or YouTube gamers who do this for a living, there is real world value created for them. But for some schlub like me who's not all that good, but just really enjoys playing those video games, it's a massive waste. And so now, as Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out, I gotta tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I am really, really tempted by this game. It looks so awesome. The graphics are better, the world is more complicated, there's more things you can do, more activities, more considerations, more depth, more interactions you can have with computer characters, all this crazy stuff that when I think about an open world game and what I love so much about it, it's got more of it and it's all better. I know that the minute I buy that game and start playing, oh man, the wheels are gonna come off. I'll waste an incredible amount of time. I'll fall behind with things around the farm here. I won't spend as much time with my wife. I'll become less creative. It'll fall apart for me. And so I'm not gonna do it. I am not going to buy Red Dead Redemption 2 because I found this lifestyle here on the farm where I kind of exist in my own open world. There's so much that's actually here to interact with, and there's so much I can do. And the difference between this and Red Dead Redemption, or Red Dead Redemption 2, is that I can impact it all, and it's real, and it's tangible, and when I'm done with it, I can share the food that I've grown with family and friends, or I can sell it to customers in my community. I can teach people about the stuff we're doing here on the farm by making YouTube videos. All this stuff goes away, if I actually cave in and buy Red Dead Redemption 2. So I'm not going to do it. And that's why. I hope I've answered your question thoroughly now. Now, if you're out there in the world watching this video and you're saying, what this guy in Way Too Much Orange is saying is kind of interesting, and I somewhat see myself in it. I too personally waste a lot of time in playing video games, and I'd like to make a difference in the real world. You know, hit me up. Let me know if you're interested in talking. I'm happy to explain how specifically I quit video games, and I'm also happy to tell you about how we started to build our farm here. And if you want to learn more about our farm specifically, feel free to watch one of these videos, or you can subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video, and I promise, I will not buy or play Red Dead Redemption 2. But I actually might watch some clips on YouTube just for the cheap thrill.